Last time on 999.
Huh? That's odd. Nothing's happening.
Maybe you're, I don't know, putting them in the wrong places.
Yes! The door's open!
Alright, Junpei. Why don't you go get June now?
Are you sure you're alright?
Oh, you're such a warrior, Junpei. Oops. I mean, warrior.
All the lights are on and the shutters opened up. Hey, does that mean...
Yeah, we gotta do it again.
Man, I thought I was doing so well. Okay, so we've got 9 holes. And there's an F up above them.
I don't know what the F means, but I do know one thing.
What's that?
This time, there are 9 holes. So we need to insert 9 pins.
Man, that's boring.
Well, why don't you just try it, alright?
There we go. All pins inserted, all lights lit. Okay, I'm done putting in the program. What do I do next?
Just be quiet and watch. See? It's moving already.
Awesome! The Pushmaster 5000 did just what I told it to, and lined up all the crates. Great, now we can reach the coffin.
They walked slowly past the row of crates until they came to the coffin. They stopped and nodded to one another, and Junpei put his hand on the lid of the coffin.
Mommy! Just kidding.
He smirked heartily at his own joke. Junpei grumbled and shook his head.
Whatever. Just open it.
Junpei resisted the urge to remind Santa that he would have had it open a long time ago if Santa hadn't interrupted, and quickly threw off the lid of the coffin. They peered inside. Contrary to what they'd expected, the inside of the coffin was quite large. It was mostly empty, but not completely so. Laying on the bottom was a rusty key, and next to the key,
It's a gun.
Yeah. A revolver.
It looks pretty old.
I wonder if this is a replica?
Junpei reached down slowly and cautiously picked up the revolver. In his hand, it felt heavy. He checked the cylinder. There were 6 bullets. He'd never seen a real gun, or even a real bullet before. He couldn't tell if these were real or not. The barrel was rifled, and nothing seemed to be blocking it. As Ace had said, the gun was a very old one. However, it appeared to have been well maintained. If it was a real gun, Junpei thought it would most likely function perfectly. If it was real, holding the gun made Junpei feel unpleasant. Carefully, he placed it back in the coffin.
You're not gonna take it?
Of course not. All something like this is gonna do is cause more trouble. It's a powerful weapon that gives one person a huge advantage. Something like that would be way too dangerous to have around. We're in enough danger already.
Yeah. I suppose you're right.
Maybe Zero put this gun here hoping that something like that might happen. In other words, maybe he put it here to make us fight each other.
In that case, we should most certainly leave it here. I, for one, have no desire to let Zero control me.
The others nodded. They had no desire to be under Zero's control either.
Okay, we got that figure out, but you aren't gonna leave that key there, are you?
Yeah, of course I'm not.
Junpei picked up the rusty key and slid the top of the coffin back into place, the gun back where they had found it.
Now let's put the key in here, and yes! Sounds like that did it!
Yay! Looks like it's open, Junpei.
I see. This key should open this door.
Hey, what are you waiting for? Let's go!
Yes! It's opening!
The hallway that left the cargo room headed straight toward the stern. Junpei and the other three proceeded down it silently. Some distance along it, a large room opened up on the left-hand side. It looked familiar. An iron grate covered each of the elevators. Junpei and his companions drew to a stop and began to discuss what their next move should be.
We've seen this elevator before.
We got off the one on the left just a little while ago.
Then we went through the number 6 door, and that took us to the engine room.
Yes, and after that we passed through the cargo room.
And now we're back here.
In other words, we made a loop. We're back where we started.
Junpei approached the elevator. Gently, he pushed the triangular button on the wall next to it. A moment passed. The elevator door opened. And shut. Pushing the button had apparently restored power to the elevator. The elevator was now functional.
What do we do? Should we return to C deck?
No, this hallway keeps going. Even if we do end up going back, I think we should see what's down there first.
I agree. Let's go.
Their decision made, Junpei and his companions left the elevators behind and continued down the hallway. Some time later, Santa, who had been walking several paces in front of the rest, suddenly stopped. Set in the wall in front of him was a door. So far as Junpei could see, there was no other way to proceed. It was the door or nothing.
All right, let's open it.
Junpei took a deep breath, readied himself, then grabbed the doorknob and pulled the door open. He paused for a moment, then stepped through into the room. And there he saw the number that had hung over their heads since they'd woken up. 9. Like the numbers on every other door, this one too was a rough shape made of red paint. Its door was set into the back wall of the room. Junpei leapt toward it with a sudden burst of hopeful energy. It was a large double door, heavy and full of solemn importance. He grabbed hold of the door handle and shook. Nothing, but he hadn't expected it to open. The red set on the wall next to the door. Its screen read vacant. Finally, they'd found it. Junpei felt himself overwhelmed by a torrent of emotion. At last, they'd found the exit, but cold gripped his heart, and he knew all too well why, as he stood frozen, unsure of what to think or feel.
Junpei! Look! Behind you!
He spun around and couldn't believe what he saw. It was a door with the number 9 written across it. Was there a second door?
Why?
Junpei's voice was barely audible, even to himself. He stumbled toward the second door, as if somehow compelled. It was a small single door. Its It sat in the starboard corner of the room, on the same wall as the door they'd enter from, but in the opposite corner. 9. There was no mistaking it. A red sat on the wall next to the door as well. Junpei shook the door handle pointlessly and muttered to himself.
Why the hell are there 2 doors?
It was Santa who answered.
There were always 2 doors. Just think about it. Zero never said there is only one door with 9 on it.
It is hidden, but an exit can be found. Seek a way out. Seek a door that carries a 9.
Of course, we just assumed that there was only one. After all, why would there be more than one?
Oh man.
Jeez. Junpei was stunned. Zero's trick had taken him completely by surprise. There were 2 doors. That meant that all 9 people who had met at the central staircase could escape and leave no one behind. Now the reason for the bracelet numbers being 1 through 9 was clear. Divided in 2, the digital root for both teams would be 9. For instance, 1, 2, 7, and 8, and 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9. The digital root for both teams would be 9. Or 2, 3, 4, 9, and 1, 5, 6, 7, 8. The digital root would also be 9. There were many other workable combinations, but they all ended the same way, with a digital root of 9. What did that mean? The answer was quite simple. From the very beginning, the Nonary game was designed to save all 9 people. Zero hadn't been lying. Zero had never said, there is only one door. But anyone who'd found themselves in the game would have assumed that was the case. Fights would have broken out. One team would likely betray or deceive the other. Someone might be hurt. Someone might get killed. But eventually, they would reach the room Junpei now found himself in, and realize the pointlessness of whatever violence they'd visited upon each other. There were 2 doors. We need to kill each other. They'd understand and be appalled, overwhelmed with guilt at what they'd done, perhaps. Perhaps that was the purpose of the game. That was how the Nonary game was meant to be solved. Fortunately, they hadn't started to fight one another, at least not yet. But if one misstep was made, if the wrong mistakes happened, the stakes would rise and the noose would tighten. The thought of it sent a chill down his spine.
So, what are we going to do, Junpei?
A voice broke through Junpei's frantic thoughts. Santa's voice. It brought Junpei back to his senses. No use worrying about the future. He needed to figure out what they were going to do next. There were 4 people in the room. Ace, Santa, Junpei, and June. Their bracelet numbers were 1, 3, 5, and 6. The digital root would be 6. In other words, the 4 of them couldn't open the door with the number 9. But what if there were only 3? Could door 9 be opened with 3 of them? It took him no time at all to determine the answer. There was only one combination of 3 people that would give a digital root of 9. 1 plus 3 plus 5 equals 9. That would mean...
No! We gotta go back!
That wasn't a possibility he was willing to consider. Santa and Ace agreed.
Yep.
I agree. We cannot leave June behind.
Junpei let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding.
Are you sure? I don't mind staying.
June's body betrayed her true feelings. Her eyes were wet with the beginnings of tears, and her legs shook.
It's okay. There's no way we'd leave you behind.
Santa had said what Junpei had known the moment he realized which 3 people could go through the door.
Besides, I'd rather drown at the bottom of the ocean than escape with this sausage fest. Maybe I'll get to go to Atlanta.
Are you sure you don't mean Atlantis?
Oh, right.
Perhaps it was the sudden reassurances that no one wanted to leave June behind, but Junpei laughed harder than he had in some time. Santa and Ace smiled.
You guys.
June blinked tears from her eyes and bit her lip. She didn't seem to know what else to say.
Very well. Best we head back to C deck then. We should be able to take the elevator we passed earlier. Perhaps Clover, 7, and Lotus will have returned from door 1.
Even as Ace spoke, they knew finding the others wouldn't improve the situation. There was no way they could be split into teams that could both go through the doors. Ace knew it. They all knew it. But there was nothing else they could do. They would find the other 3 and search for another solution.
All right. Let's go.
Ace looked at all 3 of them, then turned and headed through the door. Santa and June followed. Junpei started toward the door, then stopped. He'd been too busy with other concerns to notice the room itself. It didn't seem terribly important now, but what exactly was it? Junpei looked around the room, for the first time noticing the things that weren't doors with 9 on them. A red carpet ran between 2 columns of wooden benches that ran the length of the room. The carpet began at the large set of double doors and ran toward the bow, towards Junpei wasn't sure. Was it an altar, perhaps? There was a small rectangular alcove at the end of the carpet, and inside the alcove was a raised platform. Resting on top of the platform was a coffin. A coffin. A coffin. What on earth was a coffin doing in a place like that? But before Junpei had time to answer that question...
Hey, Junpei! The hell are you doing? Let's move!
Santa's voice echoed in from the hall outside.
Right, okay. I'll be right there.
Junpei turned on his heel and left the quiet, somber room. They took the elevator up to C deck. Once there, they headed back toward the main hall and the central staircase. It didn't take them long. Junpei found 7 and Lotus waiting for them. They didn't look happy.
We got a problem.
Clover is gone.
Junpei and his 3 companions looked at one another. He turned back to 7 and Lotus.
What do you mean, gone?
Santa, Ace, and June had their own questions to ask.
When?
Why?
You 2 went into door 1 with Clover, didn't you?
7 and Lotus responded as best they could.
Yeah, we went through the door together.
But Clover barely spoke to us.
But she did her own thing the whole time.
There were 4 rooms on the other side of door 1.
She wouldn't let us into the 4th room.
She just said, I'll take care of this one.
And shut the door.
She must have blocked it with something on the other side.
We waited a while, but Clover didn't come out.
We called for her, but she didn't answer.
So I kicked down the door and went into the room.
But
was empty.
Clover wasn't there,
There was a door on the other wall.
and it was open.
We figured she opened the door and left by herself.
We ran after her, of course, but
Well, obviously we didn't find her. You figured out that much.
Clover's gone.
Junpei thought for a moment.
When did this happen?
We got here just before you.
You certainly have excellent timing.
So, you haven't searched anywhere other than near the staircase?
No, we haven't.
Finally, Ace spoke. His voice had an edge of resolve and concern.
Very well then. We'd best separate and look for Clover. We haven't much time left. Let's begin.
There were quick nods all around, and the 6 remaining players spread out. Junpei and June ran to the large hospital room together. As quickly as they could, they searched around and under the beds and in the corners.
She's not here.
No, she isn't.
Alright, just in case, we should go take a look in the shower room.
The shower room?
That's where her brother is. She might have gone to see him.
June bit her lip. She knew, as Junpei did, that there was only one thing to see in the shower room, and it wasn't pleasant.
Well, we might as well check, right? Let's go.
There was a screwdriver stuck between the door and the frame. Junpei and June slipped through the door, moved down the hallway, and stepped into the shower room.
No luck.
Yeah. I don't think she's here.
June's voice was faint and she placed her hands over her mouth. Her face looked a little green. The stench in the room was almost unbearable. It had grown far more unpleasant since their last visit. If Junpei had eaten a lunch, he would have had difficulty retaining it. He wanted to leave the room as soon as possible, but he had to be sure. And the only way to be sure was to check the other side of the divider.
Wait here.
June offered no resistance and nodded weakly to Junpei as he headed around the divider. He stopped at the corner and turned his head. As he'd expected, Clover was nowhere to be seen. The only thing on the other side of the divider was a dead body, lying in a reddish-brown puddle of dry and drying blood. There are many ways a man can die, but this. The skull was shattered, and the head little more than a pulpy mass of brain, bone, and viscera. The left arm was hideously twisted into horrific alien shape, the bright white of the ulna shining through the remains of skin and muscle.
Huh? Wait.
Bright white. Ulna. Bones. The pieces fell into place. Junpei remembered something Clover had told him in the laboratory.
My brother's left arm is... it's not like a normal person's arm. The accident hurt him really bad. To save him, they had to cut off his arm.
Of course. Of course. Why hadn't he realized it earlier? Clover had told Junpei that Snake's left arm was prosthetic. But the left arm of the corpse behind the divider was quite clearly a real human arm, or at least it had been, once. That meant the corpse. Junpei and June headed back toward the large hospital room. They stepped through the door and out of the shower room. Down the hallway they went, searching for Clover in every corner. They had reached the stairs when 7 appeared, breathless and yelling.
Junpei! June! Where were you guys?
He looked pale, and his face was drawn. Something terrible had happened. Junpei's breath caught in his throat.
Did something happen?
Seven drew a shaking hand across his face and gulped down a breath of air.
Clover's dead.
Next time on 999.
I found her in the first class bathroom.
7. There's one more thing I'm worried about.
What's that?
What?
I haven't actually looked at it yet. Didn't want to disturb the crime scene, you know.
Let's Stop Project.